Welcome to Warrior Square, or as it should be called, Warrior Square Pier. The first train arriving is an excursion from the eastern region to the seaside, hauled by a BTH Type 1. So, as I mentioned in the title, Warrior Square Pier used to be Bexhill, back in the day when we didn't have the new shed and Plan Y. So once Bexhill was built indoors, what to do with the old one? Well, it was decided that what we would do was that we would keep it, but make certain alterations so that we didn't have to start from scratch again. And this was done by the simple expedient of removing certain passenger connections from the track layout to make it just that little bit more awkward for the operator. And this is also reflected in the fact that the goods yard controller is still marked up as Bexhill Goods Yard, although that is inside the new shed, and to a certain extent a completely different layout. So what we have now is we have one passenger platform which is on the far side, and the island platform is disused. The shelter that you may be able to notice in the views is a fertiliser depot, and there is a building behind this which is marked up Sussex Fertiliser. The two carriage sidings on the far side were kept because this is an ideal place to run excursions to, as you can see from the first train that was run. So what we have is we have a Drury shunter doing some shunting manoeuvres, making up a train and putting some wagons into the goods shed, which is to the right. The passenger platform at the rear has no run-round loop. There are two run-round loops, but they are both in the goods yard. The lack of a run-round loop in the passenger platform means that normal passenger trains have to be confined to 2Hs, EMUs, or a locomotive hauled push-pull set. It used to be the case when this location was running as Bexhill that you could have 3 trains on the move at any one time. Now that is confined to just 2. However, because of the lack of run rounds, it is necessary to have 2 pilot locomotives, the Drury 060 shunter that you saw earlier, and a Dapol BR 350 horsepower shunter. However, normally there is a Z-Class 080 steam locomotive here which is under repair at the moment, and we also have a Maunsell diesel 060 shunter under development. And here is the push-pull set arriving from Coulsdon. Operations here are slightly too much for one person, although if you are by yourself, you can lose yourself in just shunting a few wagons around. It is a little bit awkward for one person because of the distance that the control panels are apart. They're about 15 feet apart, and it also involves a step. When I recorded this video yesterday, it was extremely hot in the garden. It was over 90 degrees in the shade. But when you consider that what is on view is getting on for 30 years old now, it is extremely reliable, despite the fact that it's exposed to inclement weather, albeit it is covered during the winter. The buildings that you can see along the back, the low relief buildings, are all taken in over the winter, otherwise they would perish. But during the summer they are left out. Of course, when this station ran as Bexhill, it did have a turntable. And this is the location of the engine yard. When it was converted to Warrior Square, this was filled in, but the tracks that were used for stabling were kept as though it is disused. On the site of the turntable has been built a locomotive servicing depot, and this is designed for the 3 Southern Electric locomotives. We have one at the moment, which is 2003, which was the later one.
The older locations.
Now we're looking over the walls of the goods yard, and you can see the push-pull set which is departing for Coulsdon. This passes down a gradient and actually passes through the gentleman's facilities, which is the brown building that you can see on the right in some of the shots.
It's a system to keep you amused for years. That's what it is.
As I mentioned earlier, when this station was converted from Bexhill to Warrior Square, quite a few of the connections that enabled a passenger service to be run were removed. The only connection now between what is in effect the passenger side and the goods side is the crossover number 9, which is by the servicing facility. To remove a passenger set from the carriage sidings at the rear, it is necessary to use one of the pilots to draw them out, as there is no run round.
But there's a lot of railway things oriented there.
You can see in the foreground the considerably reduced lever frame. This has 10 signals and 3 points, but the points are only in the passenger line. All the goods yard points are operated by hand levers, which you may have noticed in the other shots, and this is an additional factor that makes it a little bit awkward, because the layout arrangement is about 25 feet long, so you have to move up and down quite a lot to move your train around. And here is the Southern Railway electric locomotive. It is departing with the excursion train and is going to Smithfield. To give you a slightly different perspective on the approaches to Warrior Square, I've deployed the wagon cam, and this is on the goods yard head shunt. You can see on the left the locomotive servicing depot, and on the right the carriage sidings. The single main line to Coulsdon is immediately to the right of the wagon, and this falls on about a 1 in 41 gradient. The BTH Type 1 that earlier brought the excursion into Warrior Square exits the locomotive servicing depot and performs a couple of shunt moves to get from the goods yard side to the passenger side. As the excursion train has already left behind the electric, the locomotive eventually departs light engine for Coulsdon. 2 of the hand levers that operate points are visible in the foreground, as I mentioned earlier. And here is that alternative view again. The BTH Type 1 leaving Warrior Square light for Coulsdon, but viewed from the wagon cam, which luckily is remote controlled. All the points and signals at Warrior Square are mechanical. The only electrical components are weatherproof microswitches that change the polarity of the frogs. Signals are operated by fishing trace wire and fishing weights, and the points are operated either from the lever frame or the hand levers by runs of brazing rod. So we finally reached the last sequence, and this is the horsebox train. The horsebox train ended up at Warrior Square because of congestion elsewhere. There was no room in the fiddle yard for it, so it had to come to Warrior Square, as I had plenty of space. That concludes this video from the SR7mm Group. I hope you've enjoyed what I've managed to record, and please watch out for more videos soon.